What is cracking, everybody? It is MegapieMan here, and welcome to another Jumpstart developer interview. Today, I'm going to be talking with Elliot K., one of the developers from 3-Person View, and we're going to be talking about his up-and-coming title, So I'm a Dark Lord. How you doing today, Elliot?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
That's good, no problem. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do at 3-Person View?
Well, I am one of the co-developers and producers for the game So I'm a Dark Lord. We're an actual brand new kind of group together. We've worked with each other throughout our little short times in the game industry, and we've decided, hey, it's time that we actually take our knowledge and start a game company. Unfortunately, we are starting from absolute zero, so it's going to be a tough road ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, everyone's got to start from somewhere, you know.
Right.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about just what So I'm a Dark Lord is?
So what we've decided that we want to do is we're big fans of old school video games and RPGs in general, like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy and stuff like that. Mm. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make a game that kind of played off the tropes and comedic values of those old school RPGs. But we wanted to do it from a different angle, not just the normal hero going through that. And we wanted to take a new villain trying to become the Dark Lord and kind of take out good, which has kind of in itself become the new evil.
Right. It definitely seems like an interesting idea. It reminds me a little bit of a game that I heard of a couple years ago known as Cthulhu Saves the World. It reminds me a little bit of that sort of idea, kind of taking the basic idea of normal RPGs and completely flipping it around on its head.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of elements that were drawn from all those old styles of, party systems and finding people and defeating evil and good and all those other tropey natures of the games. And we really wanted to play off that, but we wanted to make sure that we included a lot of our own elements too, including our Dark Castle system.
Mm-hmm. What is the Dark Castle system?
Well, the layer system is we're trying to figure out an official name for it, but basically it is an actual castle that you're going to be building up, your dark layer of sorts. So throughout the game's progress, you're going to be getting more minions. The group with it, you're going to be getting more. You're going to be upgrading it throughout the game using the different assets that you find throughout the game, whether that be just random junk items that you turn into dark influence, or you're going to actually be finding more minions, more monsters per se throughout the level, throughout the gameplay. Right. That will actually populate this area. And then on top of that, we're going to have a few key elements in the game. We're actually going to have kind of army battles that kind of play off of how Suikoden does it, except we're going to try and do it within our engine and within our specs that we can actually design out. That's not been fully fleshed out on how we're going to be handling that. We've got some ideas, and we're going to be testing some different ways that'll get it to work.
That sounds pretty cool. It reminds me a little bit of what I know of the Overlord series.
Yeah, except it'll be more on a war scale for growing the actual castle. But yeah.
So, what are some of the other projects that you have worked on in the past, and how long have you been in the game industry?
Well, I've been in the game industry for about 6 years, so I haven't been in there as long as some of the top people out there. Started my career in QA department, which, strangely enough, finding out, going through everything, that's where a lot of people get started, kind of at the root of the baseline of everything. Mm-hmm. Worked with publisher QA through THQ. This is me personally. Right. Got to work as their actual lead QA, actually leading the teams and planning out everything on how we're going to test based on developer feedback and talking with the developers on what they actually needed. From there, worked for about just a year here in Austin, Texas, where I am currently, working with a development house that worked through Zynga, which I got to actually sit with actual developers and plan out their QA process, but actually in their development team and handle their QA options on that. On top of that, I do have a background in game design through Tech College, Collins College, which is where I met a lot of the people I already know in the game industry. So through that, we're all kind of in our wanting to get into our actual design shoes now. We've been with design teams and we've worked with them, and we know a lot of the processing on spec doc planning and Excel spreadsheets and all that type of stuff. And we're wanting to take that knowledge and actually make time to make our own title out of it.
Right. That sounds pretty cool and pretty interesting. It's interesting that you say that people get started in Q&A. Usually, you wouldn't think that someone would get started in that kind of area and then advance out into something such as programming, like yourself. You'd think they would start in programming and then continue along that track.
So when it comes to some things like art and programming, that is the case. They might move directly into a very low end position on stuff like that. But when it comes to actually design or production, a lot of people get their roots starting in QA because they get their foot in the door, so to say, through those low end jobs, and then move up based on what their skill sets are and assets are.
Mm-hmm. You guys do currently have a Kickstarter. How much money are you trying to raise currently?
Well, after doing all of our planning for what we would need, we're basically a team of three, three-person view. We're also wanting to bring in one additional person to be our main artwork on the game, whether it be for sprites and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And we're also wanting to at least commission some music and sounds for the game as well.
Right.
Through all figuring that and the time we're thinking we're in need, which is about a year, we figured from ground zero we'll need 150,000. For all the team's pay and for all the commission work and taxes and all of that stuff.
That seems like a pretty good price range. It can be definitely difficult to try to price a Kickstarter, especially if it's one of the first ones you have, because you want to make sure you get enough money to actually be able to make the game, but you don't want to take the risk that you won't be able to get the money you need in order to actually finish the Kickstarter to begin with. What was the decision to go with Kickstarter instead of something like Indiegogo or finding a publisher?
Well, we wanted to try and do this on our own for the publisher reason. A publisher does give you a lot of benefits. The funding is a lot easier to get a hold of, and they can usually help you get on platforms that are usually hard to get on. Right now, it's a little harder to get on, like Microsoft. Mm-hmm. Sony's opening up a little bit, and so is Nintendo. But those still cost money to get out there. Even Steam cost to get your game up there. Although there are some things with Greenlight now. But self-publishing on just a PC title is well easy, to do. You can just host your own files and on a server and sell them however you want to, or give them away however you want to do it.
Right.
But for Kickstarter and Indiegogo, it was just we had seen a lot more successful game launches on Kickstarter. Have nothing against Indiegogo. In fact, it might be a backup plan of sorts, depending on what goes on through this Kickstarter.
Right. Right. I can only see that. So, you guys are running on a custom-built engine. It's an engine that you made yourselves. Why go with a custom engine since it is your first game? It might be a little bit more difficult to try to build an engine by yourself instead of trying to build off of something else. Why this decision to go all out for your own custom engine?
Oh, actually, I think that's incorrect. We're actually using an engine called RPG Maker VX8.
I thought I had read that you guys have made your own.
No, this is actually we're actually using a pre-built engine for the reasons that you mentioned.
Right.
We have very little funds, and we're using right now our own money just to get what little information we can get out there, and to get the engine. Going with the reason that we went with that engine is because that we're making an old school RPG. But the other is that there's a lot you can actually break into that engine using Ruby script. You can almost edit it to do anything you need it to do, breaking down how it even does the math on damage calculations and things of that nature. Also allows us to import a lot of different music, sounds, and pictures, and change the resolution from its default native engine.
Yeah, I've seen some people using RPG Maker going pretty in depth with it. It's a pretty popular thing, and I believe it's actually available on Steam now, which is kind of interesting to believe that it's out on a distribution platform like that.
Yeah, Steam's actually introduced a lot of production tools recently through their software library beyond just video games.
Right. So, are there any big inspirations outside of classic RPGs that you're bringing to So I Am a Dark Lord?
Well, besides just the RPGs itself, it's comedies in general. We wanted to make sure that this game stayed fun, had its comedy, but it also had a story that you wanted to pull through. So we're familiar with our different comedy tropes as well, and comedy shows and movies, but we want to make sure that that it's not just slapstick for slapstick's sake, and it has a cohesive story that you want to play through. You don't want to just laugh at a few scenes and then be forgotten about the next day.
Right.
But besides for video game wise, besides just RPGs, we wanted to make sure that that it had that. It didn't just have the classic feel of that, but we can bring in stuff that newer games have utilized that improved on classic RPGs, battle systems, from active to non-active. We want to decide on what we want to do, what best portrays the game to a newer audience that may not have always grown up on the RPGs, and still bring in people who did grow up on that stuff.
Right. I wasn't super big into RPGs myself. I do remember I played like Final Fantasy V on the Game Boy Advance, I think. And I definitely enjoyed that, and like Golden Sun back in the day. I wasn't super big into RPGs myself. Does your game, do you guys plan on having, I'm going to guess you're going to have like random battles and that sort of thing, but what sort of difficulty are you planning to have your game around?
We want to go for kind of a middle of the road difficulty. We don't want it to overwhelm people or force people to grind if they don't want to. We do, though, want to try and reward some people who do want to go those harder paths. So we're going to have like optional areas, optional dungeons, optional secrets that if you're really enjoying the game, you might want to power yourself up a little more, take that extra risk and extra difficulty and go for it. So, but we do want people who just want to enjoy the game as it is to just be able to just go through the game at a casual pace and be able to still see the entirety of the story that we have to tell.
Mm-hmm. I remember you mentioning green light earlier. Do you guys currently have a green light campaign, or are you waiting a little bit until you get more of the game developed before that?
We will have to wait until we have a little more of the game developed. I haven't read everything on what's required of Greenlight, but I'm pretty sure we need something that we can actually show more of. And right now, since we are kind of at ground zero for this game, we kind of need to get something up and running a little more concrete that we can actually start showing people.
How long have you guys been working on the game so far?
We've actually only been working on the game for about 4 months, about 2 months of planning and making sure that we had kind of the base outline of what we wanted to do with the game planned out before we decided what we were going to do. And we just wanted to make sure that we weren't just rushing into things. We didn't just throw an idea together. We've already made sure that we have SVN space, which is what we can use to transfer files since we work remotely from each other. We work out of our own apartments and homes. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to make sure that we can easily share those work files with each other. And we've already set up a workspace in Google Docs for document planning, spreadsheets, and any other files that we need to transfer between each other.
Have you guys thought of any other distribution platforms like Desura or anything else of yet?
For distributing the game, besides just through our own website, we are looking into other options. We're going to definitely keep everything open, from Good Old Games to Steam, hopefully even. And if we can even get on other platforms, we'll look into things like different things like Android or things of that nature.
Right. Right. So I'm going to guess that you guys are also, if you get the chance to, you'll probably work on making like a Linux and a Mac version of the game as well to get the thing on as many platforms as possible.
If it's within our ability to, yes. We don't want to rule anything out. If we can get this game up and running, we want to basically have the opportunity to at least give it a shot on putting it on anything. But it's going to kind of limit on what we can export through the engine and what our own capabilities are and budget and everything on getting those done.
Now, it's probably way too early to be asking you a question like this, but do you guys have any idea of what a price point would be around once the game was finished? I understand it's very early in development, so it's definitely understandable if you guys haven't got to a point where you can really think about a price point, but do you have an idea that you're going for?
We have an idea. We don't want to, we don't want to spend we don't want to overcharge people for this game. We are a small game and we're a small group, so we're hoping not to make it more than $15. That's our goal with this. Mm-hmm.
Something I definitely would want to discuss with you about is I wanted to just talk to you about the amazing trailer that is on your Kickstarter page. And whose idea was that? And what were the ideas behind that? Because I found that both creative and really entertaining.
Well, what it actually boiled down to is originally we were just going to do probably the most typical Kickstarter videos. We were going to have us, two of us sitting in front of the camera.
Yeah.
One of our group members actually lives out of the state than the other two of us. So we were just going to get in front of the camera and do that. And it turned our camera was really, really low quality when it came to videos. Takes great pictures, but low quality videos. Uh, I just at a spur of the moment said, every engine, Unreal and whatnot, comes with default things that you can work with. And so we just decided, hey, let's design a small little, video using the engine, actually lay out, rooms and a small little walking area and just play around with it. And, we're not the best of voice actors, but we brought in what we could. And I think that it was a lot of fun. So yeah, it was just kind of a happy turn of events that made a much more interesting video.
So you made that as a sequence in the engine. That wasn't something that was made in like Flash or edited together in some other program. That was actually in the engine that you're going to build the game around.
Correct. Yes, we actually made that completely in the engine. The only thing that wasn't actually part of the engine was the little video bit before and end, and the voice work we actually recorded in a video editing program. Although we could have played the audio in the video in the game as well.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So, is there maybe like one little secret or detail that you think you could give out at this point in the game?
Let me see. We've been trying to give a little bit of extra info throughout the Kickstarter process. Bits and details. Let me see what I could think of. Let's see. Kind of looking through some of my specs. I don't want to say something that we're still on the drawing board for. We don't want to go too much into that, but you know there's I can give a little info on maybe an opponent. Every hero of legend has an heir. In Dragon Quest, the original character was an heir to a great warrior that slayed the Dragon Lord. Well, in our game, we have a great heir. He was the heir of the person who defeated the last Dark Lord over 1,000 years ago. He's kind of living off of that reputation, whether he's, deserves it or not. He's kind of the guy that's going to be able to draw the player's attention a lot. Kind of wants to take out this new so-called Dark Lord, although he may not be the best at it, since he might just be all talk and not a lot of show. But we'll have to see more details about him when we get a little further in.
All right. That's pretty cool. Thank you very much for those sweet details. So let's get on a little bit more of a personal basis. What was it that made you decide? When was it that you decided that you want to make games? What was that point that you're like, I want to make games. That's what I want to do with my life.
When we got our original Nintendo at my house, actually. It was the first video game system I owned back in, 98, or 89, excuse me, dyslexia there. 89 is back when I was young and we got the original Nintendo finally at our house. It had been out for a while, but, video games were expensive and that's not easy in my family growing up. But when we got that thing, I didn't just want to play video games. I wanted to understand why. How did this work? And I back in the day, my mom has stacks of just notebooks of where I'm not just talking about a story, I'm talking about how it would work, what I could comprehend at a younger age, not knowing really about programming and stuff, but just the character would move this way on the screen and only knowing the limits of what I had played, on what I could do. But, drawing out, how life would work, how many hits you could take, how many lives you would be given, would there be passwords or save files, and all that type of things, or grid saves like Mega Man and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I've for a long time, the game industry has been something I've wanted to be, and I'm very, very happy that I've been able at least to be a small part of it, and I just want to continue doing that.
So, what is it that draws you to RPGs instead of other games like platformers or more action-ish games?
Well, I love RPGs. I actually love a wide variety of games, but the first one being RPG is just it lets me tell a story, a very concrete story, uh, and it lets people experience that as a story, and that's kind of what they know they're getting into. They're getting into a story, and that's what we want to do with our first game is tell a fun story. So that's what made us choose RPG as our first one.
Mm-hmm. So let's go into a little bit about mechanics a little bit. I understand again the game is very early, so there is very big subject that you can change the mechanics that you're currently working on and that sort of
Right.
thing. But you have mentioned that you'll go out, you'll be gathering minions, you'll be rebuilding, or not necessarily rebuilding, but expanding upon your castle.
Mm.
How do you necessarily go by gathering up your army and getting the minions to decide to work for you?
Well, what we're going to do for the actual minion part of it, we're kind of making that be the breadcrumbs through the story of the game,
Mm-hmm.
kind of the point A to point B. The very first mission that you'll probably go on will be to get your first monsters, join back up with the Dark Lord, as it's been it's been about 1,000 years since the last time that they were around and helping the Dark Lord. Uh, Different monsters or different groups that are going to help you out. I don't want to just say monsters; it may not be limited to that, but they will want different things. It may be as simple as go defeat their main guy, but they may need an item. Maybe they're not that hostile, but they need something of you to prove that you're the Dark Lord, or maybe they need you to defeat that city over there before they'll help you out anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've gotten the monsters on your team, the Dark Lord himself will have his own ability traits besides his fight and magic or items. He also has his ability to summon the different minions that you've acquired throughout the game. That being the case, we also want to make some of those minions optional minions to get. Maybe they're hidden more or they're a little harder to get, or if you just don't feel like it, you can skip over it.
Right. It definitely sounds like a very interesting mechanic, sort of almost like a Pokemon gotta catch 'em all mechanic, gotta get all the minions on your side. Are they
Right.
going to be something that's mandatory, or are you going to have some things that you are sort of optional, like you can help them out, but you don't necessarily need them in order to move forward?
Definitely. We're definitely going to have some optional ones there. That's kind of the fun of an RPG is kind of giving some of the choice to the player playing, not just holding their hand through the entire game. So there's going to be some definitely branching points where you can take, where you don't have to pick up all the minions, but we're also going to have some key ones that we want the player to actually progress the storyline and progress to the next point of the game. So we'll make some mandatory, but we'll definitely have some optional ones to where you can never pick them up, or if you just want to pick them up at your own leisure, you can.
Sounds definitely pretty cool. So, is the game going to be more open worldy, or is it going to be more of a linear kind of experience, or have you not decided on exactly how you want to tackle that?
It's probably going to be almost what you would call a hybrid between the two. It's easy for me to see a linear line when you're developing the game's story and progression because you can see that line clearly.
Mm-hmm.
But it might be a little masked to your average player on where they know where they need to go, but they don't have to go there immediately. I guess that's kind of how some of the other games, like the big open world games like Skyrim and stuff, does things. You have a clear main storyline, but you don't have to run it as actively as you want to. We're going to have side missions and side events going on as well in our game, on a lower scale as we're going to be more of a classic 2D style RPG, obviously. But there will be an open world map where you can venture where you want to go and find towns as you can reach them.
Right. So, playing as the bad guy isn't necessarily the newest idea. Like I've stated before, other games like Overlord or like Cthulhu Saves the World, in which the bad
Yeah.
guy sort of takes the main stage away from the other heroes of the story. What was your guys' decision to go with sort of a reverse idea instead of your basic hero RPG going against this ancient evil, instead of having you be the ancient evil going against the hero?
Well, that's just kind of one of the fun things. As you said, there are games where you play as the other side, but there's not a lot of them, and there is a lot of the classic RPGs, especially where you play as the hero venturing forth to defeat evil.
Hmm.
And so, flipping that is it was just a fun idea, and flipping it comedically. You're the main character. I don't know if you've had a chance to go through our storyline. He all he wants is attention. He doesn't just want to be. He doesn't necessarily want to be evil originally. He wanted to be a hero, but he only wanted to be a hero for the fame and glory of it. So when he found out there was a way for him to maybe be the villain, that would get him a lot of fame and attention as well. So it's kind of the reasoning for it. Not that he wants to burn down the village. It's just the burning down the village gets him his name known across the land.
Right.
So, for that reason, there's a lot that he can play off of, and we just thought we had a lot more creative pathing we could do by telling the villain side of things or the wannabe villain side of things.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like seeing things kind of turn on their head and taken differently, especially when you go for more of a comedic route. There's definitely been a lot of good games, especially with RPGs and the in-depth story taking that really goes with comedy. And I remember there was I think Hothead Games had a game called Deathspank that was a pretty interesting RPG. So you guys definitely want to focus on humor, you want to focus on story. Is there anything else that you're necessarily trying to wrap into the game?
uh, you know, we're avoiding too much social commentary, but it'll be there a little bit just on kind of some of your day to day on people telling you what's good for you at the expense of losing some of your own freedoms a little there. But the most thing we want to do is make sure, besides the storytelling and the comedy, that we have a solid, fun gameplay experience. I mean, you can have great story, you can have fun dialogue, but if nobody actually wants to play the game, then they're going to stop playing. So we
Right.
want to make sure that we have interesting game mechanics for each party member as we're finishing fleshing them out, that they bring their own character traits to the battle game, to the battle engine, and that it just is an overall fun experience. So we're going to have puzzles, we're going to have ways of upgrading different various things, whether it be your main characters or your lair, and maintaining that fun army experience that's a kind of the side part of the game. But we just want to make sure all those elements kind of feel like they knit together well. So.
Right, and from what I've read on your Kickstarter, it definitely seems like a very good idea, and that everything seems to kind of work together at the moment. Is there anything else in specific that you would like to discuss about the game?
Well, we're just trying to get right now is our game's name out there. I mean, that's been the hardest part of this whole Kickstarter process is
Hmm.
having people see our game. So anything that if people find out that they like the game, if they can share it with other people, just that info, that would be great help to us and our team.
Do you guys think that you would have a demo or maybe some gameplay footage available sometime soon?
Uh, Actually, that's going to actually matter on whether we can get this Kickstarter up and through. Mainly because the art aspect of it is a completely separate person that we need to be able to fund their time.
Right.
They're the few art people that we do know are busy, and they're not able to work for nothing.
Hmm.
And so that we actually need to get this Kickstarter up and running to have a demo soon. If we don't get the Kickstarter running, the game won't. We don't want to cancel the game, but we will have to kind of backlog the game because we all have to work live in our homes and feed for our families and us, and so we do want to have a demo up and running, and we do want to share it with people as soon as we can.
All right. How long is your Kickstarter?
Kickstarter ends August 4th, so we're almost 2 weeks away or 3 weeks away from it finishing, and we are on a slow start still.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll be able to help you out with that a
That,
little bit. I don't necessarily have the greatest channel, but any help that I can be, I will definitely try to help get you guys out there.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I would like to thank you very much for joining me on this Jumpstart interview, Elliot. I definitely think your game was very interesting, and I think that it could make for a very fun experience. If this game sounds like something that anyone out there listening thinks that they would enjoy, please do follow the link in the description. Check out their Kickstarter, read all about their game, and if it does seem like something that you want to see happen, please do give money to these guys. If they don't get the money by the end of the Kickstarter, then the game's not going to happen. So, thank you again for joining me, and unless you have any other specific information you want to throw out there, we can wrap it up.
I think we're all good. Thank you very much for having
wait,
me.
but before you go, do you guys have like a Facebook or Twitter? I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
I do, and I will happily send them to you so you can post them in the video.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and that will be it for this Jumpstart interview. Thank you for everybody watching. I have been MegapieMan, and I will talk to you guys later.